Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to have you all here. Now, I would like to invite Alisa to the for the next presentation. The topic is your cycle, your superpower: how to build your career and a business with the power of your cycle. So, Alisa is a coach, speaker, and a podcaster. She offers the various programs supporting women to unlock the power of the female cycle. And she is also a host of I Am Enough podcast, where she jams with the leaders and the role models on empowerment, leadership, and spirituality. So, Alisa, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be here and very happy to bring the wisdom of the cycle to more people. So let me share right away the presentation. I guess you must see now the presentation. If not, please let me know. Apart from these fancy titles and job descriptions I received, this is me. Hi, my name is Alisa, and on this picture you see me probably more than 10 years ago. Was a young kid interested in personal development, and this is what I was doing the last couple of years. Been working in the personal development industry as a coach, as um, way of supporting individuals and organizations. And the interesting fact is that over my entire career, I never came across the topic of the menstrual cycle or female cycle until I one day reached doula, who introduced me to that. And since this moment, I'm actually quite obsessed to bring this wisdom to more women, to more organizations, more leaders, and build awareness how important this is for our productivity, leadership, life, and general health and well-being. I love to start off with sharing three big lies that we've been told over and over again by our society, by our parents, and by the culture around us. And when I say lies, I don't necessarily mean this is a bad intention of trying to create an illusion, but it's simply something which is embedded in our culture. So keep this in mind. So number one big lie is to hide your nature. This is something that we hear as humans in the workplace very often, that how we are often with our emotional reality, with our pain and struggle, is often not the right place in the work. If it comes to our period or to our cycle, there's a lot of shame around it. This is not necessarily a topic that you would discuss with your colleagues or your boss, hardly sometimes even at your table with your parents or your partner. So the implications of that is that we have a lot of negative association images already stored, that this is something which should not be discussed in public. This is something that should be hidden away, and it's something which is dirty or something which is not there appropriate. And my invitation for this big lie is to turn it around and to celebrate this. Rather than seeing our periods and our bodies as a burden, we can choose to celebrate and see their gifts instead of seeing them as a way of a burden to success. They're actually our superpower that helps us to unleash different skills and different qualities within ourselves. The second lie is that we are separated. So when I say we're separated, we often have this idea that the way how you feel emotionally, physically, the way how you experience stress or handle stress, what you eat, how you sleep, doesn't really matter. It does not affect your productivity, your clarity, your creativity, your focusedness. And the truth is, it does. So we as an organism are not separated. Our emotions is our biology as well. And hand in hand with this, our cycle is actually what we are. If you think about it, we even say it this way, that I have my period or I have a cycle. We put it already away from us. And here's my invitation to understand that this is not something which is separated. You are actually your rhythm. You are your internal nature and cyclical nature within. And the cycle is connected with so many different aspects, like nutrition, like sleep, like your movement, like your emotions, and so on. They're all intertwined, and you cannot just fragment them as a part. The third lie is about the best and worst illusion, as I call it. And this is a very tricky one because we are built in a physiological structure. Even our eyes are trained to see black and white. We are so used in our everyday way of processing information inside and outside to categorize. And there is nothing bad about it. We like this, we don't like that. This is good, this is not so good. I love that, I hate that. So there is a certain way already where we categorizing reality. If it comes to our cycle, we will hear a bit later on, it makes a very big difference how we view it and how we view different phases of it. Here my invitation is to the next time when you catch yourself categorizing, especially if it comes to your periods, think it is as a united and different sides of the same coin. So it is good and bad. There's really the same side of the same coin, and they both have permission to be there and have a gift hidden in them. Now, these three big lies are very important because they influence the way how we see ourselves and what our biggest struggle is. And over the last couple of years, and specifically working with women in different positions and talking about their cyclical nature, I realized that one of the biggest struggles is that when we are working against our inner rhythm, this is how we usually feel. Exhausted, there is no energy, there is no power, coffee is not helping, other things are not helping. And this is probably familiar for men and women, so there is no difference. This is the result how we usually feel. And from this state, we cannot really perform our best. We cannot be and feel our best. So I want to remind you that your body is your greatest asset. There is no single strategy, no course, no leadership skill that you can learn if you don't get this straight. This organism here is what creates the foundation. If you can thrive in your body, you can thrive everyone else. If you don't know how you function, if you don't know what you need to thrive, you will be struggling and you'll be continuously working against a rhythm which can actually help you to support, realize your potential. Now, there are two rhythms which are super important to know. And we'll make a very shortcut here because we don't have so much time, but I think this is important that everyone at least hears this once. The circadian rhythm is a 24-hour cycle. This is present in men and women. This is how our internal hormones align to the sleep and to the light outside. We all hopefully know that if we don't sleep well, if we don't take care of ourselves, if this rhythm is not really aligned, it can really disturb many, many things in our daily life. Now, for women, there is, addition to that, another very important rhythm, which we often neglect and don't pay attention to. That is the infradian rhythm. Infradian means just a fancy word for a cycle which is longer than a 24-hour cycle. And for women, as you probably can guess, it's our menstrual cycle, it's our female cycle. This plays a way bigger role than the first one, is often very neglected in our work, in our business, and our everyday life. So one way of how we can relate to the infradian rhythm or to the menstrual cycle is through inner seasons, like the seasons outside, winter, summer, autumn, and spring. We can relate seasons for the inside. So that's one way of looking at it. The winter represents the period. This is your menstruation. And when you see the day 1 until 5, this is not a must. This is just a way of finding a sort of norm, but every individual woman has their own norm, and that changes over lifetime. This is not something which is static. So during the periods, you shed blood. There is an intense process which is actually going through the body. It's important to understand that this is an important time to rest. If we suppress these needs, or we are ashamed to express that we need rest or some time to rejuvenate, we're carrying the struggle throughout the rest of the cycle. This phase, if it's used actively, and you give yourself and your body the time to rest, can be an immense time for intuitive and inner clarity. So if you are still, if you are not pushing but allowing to receive, there can come a lot of inner clarity. I often say that our cycle is like our inbuilt coach, actually. You don't need somebody else. You can just tune in and see what is the right next step, what is important. There's a lot of time for reflection and creation. Through the winter, then we're moving to the spring. This is the follicular phase. This is the phase before the ovulation appears. And this is like outside, if you observe nature, excuse me, when you plant seeds, they blossom, they open up, they get more excited. So what happens within your body is that your estrogen is rising, your testosterone is rising, so your entire body is preparing for a completely different state. This time can be so much productive to do linear tasks, to go out there, structure, think, research. It's a very different state that you're in comparison to the other state, and it has its own gifts. From the spring, we're moving into summer, which is the ovulation phase. This is, so to say, the polar opposite of the winter phase. And here is an interesting thing that I mentioned before. Because we have this worst, best illusion, we often tend to say we hate the period phase and we love or celebrate the summer phase, because this is where our skin is glowing, our hormones are at the peak level. We're very good in negotiation, we're very good in expressing. If this is a time, for example, where you can schedule, if you need to schedule a salary or any other appointment where you are verbally more active, this is a wonderful time to do that. Pitch an idea, go to anywhere else. And what we realize is that the power of the cycle is not in a single phases, it lies in the variety of changing phases. Just imagine if you would have hot weather the whole time. After 1 week, maybe 1 week you enjoy it, but if you are in the heat for 1 month, you're actually waiting for cool air to come and to cool down. So the winter and the summer, they're playing along. The summer exists because of the winter. And this is important. The ovulation and our period are important cornerstones in our cycle. So as I mentioned, this is a phase which you're very extroverted, very outgoing. If you have the chance and you know where in your cycle, you can really strategically plan your appointments accordingly. And that can benefit as well as your career, as your life. Now, from the summer phase, we're transitioning into the autumn phase. This is the luteal phase. And this phase is often associated with PMS and less productivity, which is partially true. We can go in the questions more to details. But the important part here to understand is that whatever happened in the other phases of the cycle will be amplified here. So if you're having unnecessary stress, if you had situations which you didn't process emotionally, physically, mentally, if your nutrition was not aligned, if you didn't take the time to rest in the winter phase, this will be amplified here. And then at the end, we call this PMS. And often what we do is that we're trying to mitigate the symptoms. So for painkillers, for other stuff during this phase, while the root of the problem is not taking care of other phases throughout the month. If this phase is used correctly and we can really tune in and also already change a bit our state and take care of ourselves, it is an incredible phase for creativity. I personally use this phase where the most ideas come, where the most moments of creative expressions for my business and private arise. And I know this from other women as well. So it helps us to understand where we are in our cycle. And if we do, we can navigate this. And for me, what is important to transmit is that it's not only about the monthly cycle, it's also about the entire women's life cycle, because this is just a small snapshot of what's we go on a hormone basis. There is much more connected to this, which is motherhood, which is miscarriages, which are all different challenges which come with that, which are equally important and not talk about. And another phase which is initiated is the menopause, which I call the taboo in the taboo. So also before menopause, and this is something that we all will be facing if you're living in a female body, there is also adjustment phase before. And the way how you transition to menopause will be very much dependent on how much you take care now of your female cycle. And once again, in our Western society, we call the menopause like the winter, unfortunately, something which is bad, where women don't have a functioning society. But if you look into more Eastern traditions, like in Taoism or in Tantra, you consider the menopause or menopausal women as the dragons. That is called the second spring. This is where actually a new source of power and energy arises if you can transition gracefully to that and know how to support your body. So, having said all this, I would love to leave you only with one message, that when your body is in survival mode, if you don't take care of it properly, which we often neglect with our female cycle, you can't thrive. This is simple math. If your body is in survival mode, you can't thrive. And if you can thrive, that means you are not as productive, you are not as expressive, you are not that authentic, you are not that in your power. So yeah, that was the cute little talk here. And I would say let's use the last couple of minutes for some questions, because that's usually where the juice lies. So I think I should pick the questions by myself. Hi, but there are no questions. Is this correct?
Yes, I see one question from Pratika Jain. The
Here.
question is,
what if you face a lot of stress
yeah,
because of excess workload? Where can't get enough sleep? Do you think we should switch your jobs? It's a question probably that can't be answered in a couple of minutes or seconds. It depends very much what your situation is. If you generally face a lot of stress, which is unnecessary, I want to invite you only to reflect that your body is literally the tool that carries you for this life. So if you damage it, and it's very resilient, but if you damage it a certain way, it can really impact your mental health. It can really impact your fertility. It can impact you in so many different ways. If there are ways to negotiate, and I know it's not it's not an easy part, but to speak with your manager, if you speak with how to like this, that would be an option. And of course, switching jobs can also be another way. What if you face a lot of stress because of that's another question up. Okay. Do you think women should get leaves for menopause? Because a lot of women face so much during their cycles. So it's also not so easy to, fantastic and brilliant question, by the way. It's also not so easy to implement, because you see, if you are an organization, it very much depends what kind of culture and context you have already. What we don't want to create is that we maintain this idea that your cycle or your menopause or parts of the cycle is something which is considered as weak, because it's not. It's your superpower. It's literally who you are, and you should be proud and celebrate this. So there are different policies which can be implemented, but they cannot be implemented like, for example, paid menstrual leave. Also, for menopausal, there can be some support, but it needs to be combined with other aspects. It needs to be combined of maybe seeing like how much awareness is there in the organization, how can we connect our female leaders and talents to nutritionists, to other experts in this field to support their process. So there are variations of what you can do. What do I do if I have a lot of stress during working time? The easiest thing what you can do is what we can do right now, is taking a deep breath together. If you exhale through your nose and prolong your breath, and you do this couple of breaths, 5 or 7 breaths, what you do immediately is you relax your nervous system. That can really be helpful in very stressful moments. And if you want more, let's chat and get in touch with me. We can do. Okay, one last minute. Can cycle affect the thought process? Yes. I always say that's with my clients, that it's not that one woman is living within you. You actually have 4 women living in one. And you should, excuse my language, but really fucking celebrate it and love it. And you don't need to put yourself into one box. So you think, you feel, you act, and you have different needs and desires. You are different in different phases. And this is something that you can explore and play with, instead of trying to keep yourself, I need to be this one person. No, you're many different colors, and that changes. And this is something which is actually an asset and something very wonderful. Okay, I assume our time is up. so the next talk can come. So thank you very much, everyone. Feel free to reach out and talk more. I love talking about that, and have a fantastic rest of the conference, people.
Thank you. Thank you, Alisa. This was really informative talk, and we really had a fun. And I think all the all the questions that we got from the attendees they were very fully satisfied because they were very clear. So I'm really, really appreciating you taking your time off and giving us this wonderful talk. Thank you.
Happy to be here. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks.